All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOps Demos That Don't Suck. My name is Matthew Baum. I'm the CEO and co-founder of RevOps Co-Op, a global community of 8,000 plus revenue operations professionals from across the globe. And in this series of RevOps Demos That Don't Suck, we essentially take product demos of kind of leading tools, software that's out there in the market for RevOps professionals so that you don't have to. And today we are talking to the folks over at Sweep, and specifically I'm with Danny Hodge, who is the head of sales at Sweep. And Sweep is essentially a no-code or a low-code visual kind of editor to help you manage your business processes and your go-to-market motion within Salesforce. But I'm going to let Danny kind of do all the talking in terms of what Sweep is, what it does, how it solves kind of problems, what problems it does solve for RevOps folks that are out there. And so with that, I guess, Danny, I'll turn it over to you. If you want to do a quick introduction personally, give us a quick kind of overview of Sweep, and then I'll start to pepper you with some questions, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. And we're excited to, we've been a part of the RevOps Co-op community for a while. So exciting to dive in and tell people on a broad scale what we're about. But my name's Danny Hodge. I run sales at Sweep, and I've been with the company for just about 7 months now. I worked with the founders previously for years at Wix. So they left about 20 months ago to start Sweep, and I followed shortly after once they had been heads down building the product. So very excited to share it with everybody. And Matt, I think you nailed really what Sweep is at its core. We're a no-code visual interface to manage Salesforce. And we'll go into the demo a little bit later, but sometimes managing Salesforce and knowing and deciding what you need to do can't really happen until you understand what's in there in the first place. So our product is also like a documentation visualization tool that helps companies at first understand in a format that is accessible to everybody, a visual format, what their configuration looks like, so they can kind of start to go in and pinpoint, here's what needs work, here's where we can make our configuration match our go-to-market strategy perfectly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so before I ask some specific questions on the problems and use cases, I think you kind of mentioned a little bit that you worked with previously. You worked with the co-founders of Sweep at Wix, and so just curious, kind of give us, I guess, the origin story maybe of how the group decided to kind of start Sweep, because I think it's certainly relevant to kind of how the product's getting built now.
Yeah, it's one of these like perfect storms of like a problem being right in your face and the solution sitting right next to you. When I joined Sweep, Ido and Iran, our founders, had already been there. They had started a company previously. So when I joined Wix, they had already been there. Ido and Iran had previously founded a company that Wix acquired, and their mission in Wix was to build a team to pursue this specific vertical of super high value users. They were all like digital marketing agencies is who we were going after. So when I joined, it was part of the first group of salespeople that Wix had ever hired. It was a fully self-service marketing funnel that was tremendously successful. But in order to try and go out and get these high value users, there was some level of persuasion and cold outreach that needed to be done. So that generally equals sales. I share all that context because Wix had never used Salesforce before. So once we had a sales and a customer success operation going hand in hand after these digital marketing companies, we started using Salesforce. We had a tremendous amount of success in the first, it was very quickly, like really in the first 9 months to 15 months, I would say. And because of the impact that our group was bringing, Wix decided that we want to recreate the same idea of bringing in sales, doing something that's a little bit more outbound and less self-service, a little bit more high touch is probably like the right terminology, for all of the high value verticals. So for e-commerce, for restaurants, and so on. So from a Salesforce standpoint, Ido and Iran saw the org grow from about 30 people to 250 people over the course of about a year. And we had an all-star team of RevOps people and Salesforce admins there. But each time that we needed to add a new process to represent a new vertical, it added complexity. When my group, which had been on Salesforce in the beginning, needed simple changes making, everything was really grinding to a halt. There were all these dependencies that were built into Salesforce. And as we continued to grow the business and the users that were in it, the complexity only grew and the agility and speed only slowed down. So, that there must be a better way moment was what Ido and Iran were facing. Like, we have the best staffed team we could possibly imagine, and it's really no fault of theirs. It's really just once they dug in, they're like, this is just kind of the nature of the beast with Salesforce. That was how the problem was discovered. The solution sitting right next to them at Wix is, for those that are not familiar, a visual no-code website editor. So if you think about websites in Salesforce, there's a lot of similarity. Websites in Salesforce can both do almost literally anything, but because of that, it takes a high level of customization to make them behave the way that you expect. So Wix had this visual drag and drop editor, very easy to configure, pretty complex processes that run in a website, and make sure that all the pieces fit together. And very much what you see is what you get in terms of the back end of Wix translating into a website. That was really a blueprint for us to, or not us, I can't take any credit, for them to begin building Suite, where they want a quick environment, drag and drop, visual, everyone can understand it. And what you see in the Suite canvas is what you get in Salesforce, because our product is doing the difficult part of building the architecture, writing the code, all of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I always love the stories that, that start with, like the founding team, right? Having a personal experience, like facing the problems themselves. And then the other thing that I love is, taking things that you've learned or that have worked in other areas, like you said, Wix, what Wix does for websites, right? And take that approach and apply it to a different problem, right? And possibilities are endless there. So I guess, so with that, Danny, then let's talk a little bit about kind of problems and solutions. So what are some of those problems that folks in RevOps are facing today, and then how does Suite solve for some of those problems? I know I probably heard some of them in your overview earlier about Salesforce, like user base growing rapidly, kind of being a bottleneck, things like that. But tell us, I guess, from your perspective, what are some of those problems that RevOps folks might be facing today that could be like, oh wow, I have those problems, I'm experiencing those problems, and tell us how Suite kind of solves for some of those things.
Sure. So I can look at it in a couple of different ways. At an organizational level, where companies that I'm speaking to are struggling with Salesforce, is a lack of understanding and visibility of what's built in Salesforce. And that's usually not the RevOps folks. They're the ones who know. Maybe they're creating documentation to enable, the go-to-market teams and leadership to understand the process, understand where in our processes are we relying on people to do things manually? Where is there a lack of automation? What information is required to be collected where? And kind of like, what is our playbook? And does our configuration in Salesforce match the playbook that we're intending to run? So at an organizational level, just like the lack of visibility is something that I see across the board. And part of why the lack of visibility exists is because documentation and creating a format or an environment in which anyone can understand what's going on in Salesforce takes a lot of time. And RevOps people are normally not only managing Salesforce, they're managing the whole tech stack. They're getting hammered with requests from every angle for different things. That the lead form on the website is not feeding into Salesforce correctly. The enrichment is not pulling in the right data or like populating the right fields. All of a sudden, our outreach isn't sending the sequences the way we want them to, and we can't figure out why. It's like they have this whole host of problems that they're solving in the organization. And I know I'm preaching to the choir with the RevOps Co-ops folk, but what certainly, and I think rightfully so, goes to the bottom of the priority list is documentation. And when I'm talking about like the organization level problem, it doesn't exist for a reason, because RevOps, which is really intended to be a strategic role, is bogged down with all this tactical day-to-day stuff. And nowhere is the tactical day-to-day tasks harder to complete than in Salesforce. So when we're thinking about Sweep as a solution, we want to provide a tool that makes it fast and easy for them to complete things in Salesforce, like their day-to-day tasks. For a lot of companies we talk to, our product is enabling Salesforce admins to do things that technically they're not so familiar with, around like automation and assignments and Slack integration. But to do it in a way that's incredibly efficient, to do it in an environment where by using Sweep, you're creating real-time documentation that you can invite others into and have them collaborate and give feedback and give notes. And one of our mantras is like keeping RevOps strategic, right? If you think about RevOps as the function that sits between sales and marketing and leadership, they're the ones that are closest to all of the data. They know how all the pieces fit together in the puzzle because they're the ones doing the puzzle. The fact that they can also work in Salesforce and are technical in it is mind-boggling to me. It's incredible. It's impressive. But I'll always say, like, when we're talking about business, like degree of difficulty in terms of getting tasks completed, like there's no style points. The faster you can get something done, if it behaves the way the organization needs it to behave, and you're able to accomplish more because you're using a tool that makes you more efficient, that's really the space that we want to slide into.
Yeah. And maybe kind of next what you can do is, if you want to kind of pull up the product, and you can kind of start walking us through it. But the thing I'll mention as you're doing that is the like on the documentation side. I think for me, from my perspective, and I think probably everyone in RevOps, is that the need for documentation is clear, and like why you should have it is very clear. But the other thing is, not only is it obviously an exercise to document things, right, to complete your documentation, but the other thing is for, take the Wix example, right, that you gave of when you go from, 35 to 200 plus people, and you go from one vertical of marketing agencies to now all these other verticals, things are changing so rapidly, and your documentation can become outdated very quickly. And so you're like, geez, is it really worth putting all this stuff down on paper when next week, next month, it could all be different? And then I've got to go through that whole exercise again, right? And so it's like this, it's kind of this, this just, I'm going to constantly kick the can down the road sort of things, because things are changing so rapidly. But yeah, I guess give us, kind of walk us through, maybe the documentation use case is a good example, right? Of like, hey, I've got Salesforce today. I'm a RevOps person. I built most of what's there. I know what's in there, right? But how can I communicate and let someone else know, let my CEO know, let my my CRO, let someone else on the team know kind of what's in Salesforce, right? Like what's there, what are we currently doing, how are we doing it? How would I do that with Sweep?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be logged into 2 different accounts, and I'll explain why in a second. But I'm logging into this environment because it's actually connected to a Salesforce environment that was built natively in Salesforce. So for the documentation, it's going to hit home a little bit more clearly. And the other one that I'll show is actually like our own Salesforce environment, which is completely built using Sweep. So for the environment that we're in right here, one of the things I also always emphasize about our documentation, you did a really good job of outlining the time investment and the process behind it. With Sweep, it's really only a couple of clicks, and our product does all of the hard work. So when you're logging into Sweep, on the left side here, you wouldn't be connected to any environments. So to add environment, you tell it, are we connecting to a sandbox, to a dev sandbox, production? And what our product does is scan that environment, all of the different objects, custom and standard, all the different record types across the objects, the validation, automation, all the fields that exist. It reads all of that and it represents it in a visual format. So what we're looking at right here is a process that starts as a lead. There's a few different statuses on the lead. And then once a demo is booked, we're converting into an opportunity. Not that sexy or exciting yet. But we also then go a layer deeper and can also add in all of the different business logic and automation that exists in this process, and is attributed to this record type. And I know right now we've got two different objects on the same screen, but if we're clicking into any particular step, you can see, okay, we have validation rules. This was built in Salesforce. This is the name of it. If you click into it, there's actually like a very plain English explanation of what does this validation rule actually do? How does it behave? How does it affect this particular business process? So what we're coupling here is the actual like explanation of all of your business logic and your automations with the context of where it impacts your go-to-market motions. So like when I'm looking at this new business process, we're not looking at anything that is impacting the customer success org. We're not looking at anything that is impacting the partners channel. So right away, just with a few clicks, you have this instant documentation of everything that's built in your Salesforce today. And what we see a lot of companies doing, and like I kind of mentioned before, to know where you got to improve, the first thing you need to know is like what exists there today. When we have this format that everyone can understand and all of the validation automations explained in plain English, now we have something that we can take to the go-to-market teams, show them their process as it exists in Salesforce today, and say, let's challenge the merit of this. Let's see if, are there places where deals might be slipping through the cracks because we're relying on sales to do something manually? Are there unhealthy customers that are not going to get surfaced automatically to customer success because they have to go look at a report to figure everything out? So that's really the use case that we see around documentation. Is it's the first step of figuring out what do we actually need to go in and fix.
Yep. And so if we, I connected Salesforce now, I get some of this instant documentation, right? What if I identify, areas that need improvement or areas that need changes, right? Like how would I kind of use Sweep to make changes to my Salesforce environment? Like say it's changes to existing processes, right? How would I do that?
Yeah, so this is like the interface that you're seeing here. We call this our canvas, and right, verbally it's meant to feel like this is a workspace where we can create whatever we want. So using our interface, let's say we want to add a new status to this lead, call it connected. So what happens when sales is working a lead, they connect, then they book a demo. And then let's say, all right, what do we need to make sure is happening if a lead is going from connected to book demo? We are going to make sure we have a meeting date in there. So we happen to have this field, first meeting date. We're going to say it's not empty. If we wanted to create additional validation, you can use whatever logic you want. But if we wanted to create validation around a field that doesn't exist yet, you can create that right from this same interface. So we're really trying to bring all of those disparate parts of the setup engine in Salesforce into one environment. So you can do everything all at once. And then on the other end, once you've actually built something that you're happy with, you have that documentation everyone can see in very plain English. All right, what do I need to do to move from connected to book demo? Oh, I need to fill in the first meeting date. Cool. There's, a number of layers deeper that we can go in terms of what you're able to accomplish using sweeps. Like automations is a big one that, for some Salesforce admins we talk to, certain types of automation is out of reach. For others that we talk to, they're comfortable in flows, they're really strong with it. But because there's limited hours in the day, they're looking for a shortcut to achieve the same end result in a faster way. So, I'm trying to remember, we're at the stage of connected. So we'll say if a record is in connected for 30 days, I'm going to create this automation that's basically going to automate a lead getting dropped into a nurture bucket for marketing to handle it when it hasn't been progressed and sales has given up. But we all know that sales is probably not going to remember to remove this from their pipeline. So we're going to say if a record isn't connected for 30 days, and the last activity is more than 10 days ago, rather than letting it just sit there and collect dust, we are going to update this record and say the status actually should be nurture. And this is how we're configuring automation in Sweep. Another thing that it just doesn't really come out of the box in Salesforce is, or it does come out of the box, but I've yet to find someone that is happy with it, is a Slack integration. So maybe we want to make sure that sales is doing their job and create some type of safety net. So we're going to say all right, give me a second here. Basically, I'm creating a scenario where an SDR books a demo, the demo doesn't happen, and the SDR inevitably has moved on to bigger and better things, and that interested person never hears from you again. So we are going to say 7 days after the first meeting date, if the status of the lead is still booked demo, so a representative has not progressed, then we want to post to Slack, and now we can construct our message. Hey, lead owner, this demo never happened. Reach out to rebook. And you can layer in whatever fields you want. You can add additional fields here. So maybe just want to put in like an email, and then the recipients are dynamic. So what I'll show you in a second is actually like our Salesforce environment and how it behaves is completely built in Sweep. We have a lot of like alerts and notifications that are going to Slack channels, or like a deal gets closed one and our customer's channel is updated. We get a demo booked from a marketing lead and a different channel is updated. But really, like, I'm talking about tactically what you're doing. But at a strategic level, you're putting in these alerts and notifications and these automations to ensure that nothing slips through the cracks. Whether it's a good thing, a good indicator, a bad indicator, your team is going to be alerted of it, and records are going to live in the appropriate stage, which also then ends up helping data hygiene as well.
Yeah. And so you made a couple of changes in here, right? So I think we added a status, right, for connected. And then we also added the Slack notification. So do those things get deployed then immediately? Is there any sort of does Sweep also help with call it the checks and balances, like making sure obviously that anything that you do does not break anything else, either downstream or upstream as well?
Yes. So nothing is changed in Salesforce until you hit this little deploy button that I just clicked on, and you can deploy to sandbox, test it there, well, then just deploy to production. The second question you asked, I think, is much more relevant to like real life issues. And when I hear about Salesforce slowing to a halt as companies get more complex, what's beneath that is dependencies, and exactly what you said of, I fixed something for person A and all of a sudden I've broken something for team B, and I didn't know that I was going to do that. So what's really great about the way that our product is deploying to Salesforce is that it's completely dependency free. When we go in and we look at this process that we were just working on as like this independent business process, the way that Sweep is writing architecture in Salesforce, it's ensuring that any changes you make are only impacting the funnel that you are working on. So, maybe you have 6 different record types across opportunities. If we're working on the partner reseller channel opportunity, You don't have to then go and QA the enterprise opportunity process because it's deploying the changes only to the business motion that you're working on.
Yep. Okay. Okay, that's great. And then yeah, I guess so you got like funnels on here, right? So I guess that was my next question was like, because we kind of went over, okay, you give me this great documentation for what I've already got. You give me the visual interface editor so I can edit any of that stuff really easily, add automation, add validation rules, tweak things. I can deploy things to Sandbox first. You never want to deploy it directly to production. I've obviously never done that. Wink, wink. Yep, that's right. I've definitely rolled like that before. And so if which is all awesome. So what if I have like a new funnel or a new process that I want to build something new in Salesforce, right? Or versus look at something that I've already got. Yeah, kind of show us how I would do that and maybe apply it to some sort of example or use case if you can.
Sure. So start from scratch. We have a few templates that are built in here, and I'll do the start from scratch, but sorry. So we're doing the start from scratch. We actually, in a couple of weeks, are going to be publishing a library of template best practices on our website. So, here are the right stages for a lead. It's more around like sales methodology. So maybe you want to implement Medic. Maybe you want to implement BAN at the top of your funnel. Maybe you guys want to look at some like best practice templates for a PLG selling motion. Maybe you want to look at best practice templates for, for account-based marketing and account-based selling. We have a lot of those resources which we've collected because we're having so many conversations with businesses that have totally different models. So we're seeing what works. And obviously, in a completely anonymous way, we're also helping bring some of the best practices that drive the best conversion and making them available for others.
Yeah.
So I know we were looking at leads and opportunities before, but you can work off of any type of object that is in your environment. The environment we're connected to right now, we only connected these 5 objects, but again, Sweep works with any object type, including custom objects as well. But yeah, so we can say first, the use case that we see here and new companies, a lot of times it's like, all right, we have our sales process defined. Customer success is going to start using Salesforce.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
that's actually what I was gonna ask about, because I saw the case object and some other stuff in there too. So
yeah, exactly. So a lot of times like that's the use case for building out a new object and configuring it. And I'm just putting this in there because I'll inevitably come up with some stupid example. So I'm saving me from myself. But yeah, the other use case we see with some of our enterprise customers is they want to test out selling into a new vertical. They want to test out some totally different process. There's an approval process with finance. They need to bring them inside Salesforce. These are all things that take a long time and really block a business from moving as fast as they need to, just because working natively in Salesforce comes with so much complexity and so many dependencies. So, one thing I think is also probably worth noting is that, especially with our larger organizations that we're connected to, they're not using Sweep exclusively. Processes and things that you're creating in Sweep can coexist completely okay with processes that are built natively in Salesforce, right? So we have some companies that are, it's just a specific team. Like a large organization has a mergers and acquisitions arm, and that's the only group that's using Sweep today. Obviously, we hope to expand, but it's not an all or nothing option.
That's great. And so easy to kind of visually create new things, and then looks like process is the same, right? Where you can make sure you're not kind of breaking anything that's already there. One click to deploy. And so I guess before I get into some other questions about just like differentiators and things like that, any other kind of RevOps specific use cases you want to make sure to cover and walk through?
Yeah. So, we talked, I would say, like, inevitably the question comes up. So what if I know how to do all that in Salesforce? Why do I need Sweep? What's the real benefit here? Sure, there's time savings. And I think, those people are kind of selling short the significance of the time savings, but our product is actually doing a lot in the background because we're so intimately connected with a business's processes. It allows us to create a lot of supporting benefits for the organization and for the end user. So the first thing is reporting. Basically, all of these different modules here represent a dashboard that all you would need to do is click activate, and Sweep is actually building and deploying this dashboard in Salesforce. And again, because we understand, like in this case, what are the different statuses of a lead? What are the different stages of an opportunity? It makes it very easy for our product to automatically, without you doing anything other than press a button, create the reports, put them in a dashboard. So now you have conversion percentage between each step in your process and historicals beneath it. Velocity tracking for the folks out there that are doing this manually, like, God bless, but it's a lot of work in the beginning, and it's even more maintenance. If you add a status to a lead, now you have to go in and create the additional fields and the flows to timestamp them and all that. So Sweep is creating all of this reporting infrastructure for you on the back end while you're just configuring on our canvas. And the other piece, which is something that's really cool for end users, I'm showing you, this is our in production Salesforce environment as visualized and built in Sweep. I'm showing you this just for a little bit of context. These are our criteria. These are our gates, which is synonymous with validation rules for when a lead can move from new to MQL, right? So last name, this is basically just making sure that our data enrichment tool has populated something. And then we need one form of getting in touch with these people. And we've also checked this box that says move automatically when conditions are met. If I'm going further down that process, moving along, we're also automating if a scheduled meeting date is not empty, we're advancing that record. So when I think about your question of building a new process, like what are the other things that are happening? Layouts is always something that RevOps people are doing because they're getting obnoxious complaints from salespeople, like younger, more immature me, of I don't know where the fields I need to fill in are, and you change them every week. So Sweep solves that because we understand your process and we understand what's required at each step. I'm just going to go in and create a lead and show you what my Salesforce looks like. So we handle the layouting for you by installing this lightning component at the top of your end user's layout. So rather than me as the sales rep going through and looking at all the different fields and trying to remember what's required each step, we defined in Sweep what fields are required. They're automatically surfaced for me up here at the top. So if I try and advance without filling them in, I get an error message, which Sweep also automatically creates. And then if I go in and fill this in, it automatically advances me to the next stage, presents me with the next set of required fields. And now if I put in a meeting date, it's going to pull me all the way to demo scheduled, which is our conversion step. So again, like these are some of the things that Sweep does in the background that is just saving RevOps a lot of time and headache, because they don't need to take like the intentional time to go in and create this in the first place, maintain it whenever changes are made. I was speaking with someone today who was like, it just seems so silly that like I make a simple change and then there's 4 things I need to update documentation. I need to update the page layout. I need to update for the reporting. So these are things we hear all the time, and I'm glad we hear them all the time because it means that there's actually a need for our product out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's you kind of highlighted it before of like it's the downstream impact of like what one, theoretically like simple change should have. But like you said, you add a like a stage or a status, right? You're not talking about now you need to be able to measure conversion, not only like from the stage above it to that new stage, now that new stage to the like the prior stage. And then there's like data integrity. Like there's just so much there that you're like, oh, it's easy, just like add that, right? But adding that is a lot of extra work. And then yeah, like the end user result, right? Like the folks who are selling or who are on the customer success team, like they're ultimately the end user. They're the true users of the Salesforce product, and so making it easier on them is absolutely huge as well.
Yeah, we try again, like the idea here is that you're bringing everything into one workspace. Everyone can understand what's going on. And because our product is controlling and understanding like what your intended end user experience is and what the reporting you might need is, it's easy for us to have that all taken care of automatically.
Yeah, that's great. And so I guess a couple of questions as we kind of near the end here and start wrapping things up. So you mentioned a little bit about kind of current customers. I know I heard you say things about enterprise customers, smaller kind of growing customers. Like who, I guess, what does call it a typical user of Sweep look like? Either, through like the type of company that they work for, that they are, and then the type of person, right? Like in RevOps, sales ops, other roles, like who are the user, who are the companies that are typically a really good fit for the product?
The companies that are a great fit are these 1 or 2 person RevOps machines that are supporting a large group of like go-to-market users. I think that when we're enabling companies to look at buying a product instead of having to hire extra headcount or start work with a consultant, which only over time makes them more and more beholden to the work that consultant is building in their Salesforce. That's where Sweep is a really logical fit. Empowering the end users to do a lot more just because we're putting time back in their day. And in some cases, we're also enabling them to do things that technically they're not, maybe the people aren't super familiar with flows. Although we have many technical users that, kind of the mindset I outlined before. Yeah, I can do this really difficult thing in Salesforce. Yeah. I'm good at it.
Should I?
Yeah, but why would I if I could do it in a much easier way and also do it in a way that I can go show the head of sales and they'll understand what this automation does. For companies that don't have RevOps yet, like that is a home run for us in the sense of, maybe it's a CRO or a head of sales or head of marketing that is being a brave person and owning Salesforce in an interim basis. We're really enabling them to do a lot more and have a much higher level of customization in their Salesforce than they would really be able to do. But I'm sure everyone in this group knows, like, RevOps is the largest growing title on LinkedIn this year. So there's fewer and fewer companies that are falling into that bucket. And then when I'm thinking about enterprise, like the first motivation to start working with Sweep is always, and these are teams that have, dozens of developers. There's, a whole product team within the organization of, product side Salesforce, developer side Salesforce. The visibility for them is just like they've had so many dozens of hands in their environment over the 10 to 15 years that they've been using Salesforce that it would almost be impossible to expect documentation to exist. And that's why things start to move so slowly. So for them, documentation's a game changer. And then once they get bold and they're like, I'm going to make a change, I'm going to start seeing what Salesforce behaves like if I deploy something from Sweep, that's really like the next step for them. And we have some that are there, but the personas that we're working with, RevOps are those are our heroes, those are our power users. And our customer success team is all experienced RevOps people as well. So when we're encountering companies that maybe don't have someone with that brain or doesn't really have experience making the different pieces of marketing and sales and all this fit together, they do have us as a resource to bounce ideas off of. A lot of times the way the discussion goes is like, hey, can you tell me what questions I should be asking internally to like extract what our business stuff, like what our business process should be. So we're filling the gaps there from more of a service standpoint than a product standpoint, but it all comes together if you're working with Sweep.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so when it comes to I guess getting started, so do you guys offer any sort of self-serve or like free trial option, or need to talk to someone on the sales team in order to get rolling? And then if someone chooses like, all right, yeah, I want to give this a shot, how long does it take to get the product implemented?
So we don't have like a product-led growth self-service option right now. So if you want to discuss this, you'd be speaking with me or somebody on my team. But certainly we're in the habit of doing a proof of concept. Usually what we're trying to prove there is, first off, like, what does the visibility look like for our org? And then second off, if I'm building something in Sweep and deploying it to a sandbox, how does that behave? How much faster was it built in Sweep than I would have taken me to do on my own? And is it behaving as if I had taken that time and built it natively in Salesforce? So we love people that are coming to us with, hey, finance just wanted us to build in this process for them to like do loan underwriting or something like that. It's on my to-do list. Can we just like try and hammer it out in Sweep, test it in the sandbox, and if it works, then we're good to go. We love when people bring us what's on their backlog, what's on their to-do list, and help them knock it out. That's a home run for us. And then, yeah, as far as like onboarding, like I showed, the visibility happens in like a couple of clicks. It's not a product that you add to your tech stack that has hands-on configuration time before you start to see the value. It's really immediate. And as far as like onboarding and training, you're working with our customer success folks. They're giving you, walkthroughs of here's where everything lives in Sweep. Here's where you're creating the Slack alerts. Here's where you're creating assignment logic. Here's where you're defining who are the teams that are receiving assigned leads, and, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing a lot of enablement. I would say that on average, we're doing like 3 45-minute calls until we kind of get shooed out of the room and they're like, okay, I got this. I'm on my own now. Let me drive. And then the conversations are a lot more consulting of, hey, I'm the only RevOps at my company, so I don't really trust I will get useful feedback from anyone here. I'm thinking about doing this way. What do you think? And that's where our customer success people really shine.
Yeah, that's great. And when it comes to pricing, how do you guys price? And I guess what should folks consider there?
Yeah, so we try and make it pretty simple. There's 2 elements of our pricing. The Sweep platform license is flat. It's $1,000 a month with an annual commitment, and it gets you access to the visibility, being able to alter your configuration, build in new processes, create automation, get the reporting, all of those things we looked at. On top of that, there's a bunch of functionality in Sweep that is really geared to benefit the end users, the folks that are part of that go-to-market world. So I'm talking about receiving Slack notifications, having that sales guidance tool that surfaces the required fields, and lead routing and assignment. And then there's a per cost user for folks that an organization would want to have those benefits as well. So for us, I'd like starting at $12K annually and then scaling up depending on the size of the org.
Yep. And then in addition to pricing, I know we talked about kind of ROI a little bit. Obviously, I can see tons of time saved, and I could see how a starting investment of $12,000 is going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than hiring a person to come in and support your Salesforce instance, or to even go out and spend money on a consultant. But how should folks be looking at, call it the business case, right? The ROI as it relates to the investment.
This is like the thing that I rack my brain about all the time, is like selling in a company that's really truly brand new. And for the folks that are closing, I'm always asking, like, please share whatever you are comfortable with, but what did you talk about when I wasn't in the room? So what I'm hearing is there's a long list of like concrete deliverables that are kind of like, I would say like business group specific, that RevOps people are taking to their org and saying like, all right, on an org level, we're all going to have visibility of the processes. We're going to have up-to-date documentation. We're going to have reporting. Sales, here's some benefits for you. You'll be able to have Slack notifications. We can build in complex logic for assignments and automation. Marketing, if you want to be alerted when sales isn't calling your leads, we can set up a Slack notification for that. So they come with this like concrete list of deliverables, and the way that they're usually presenting it is like, this stuff's binary. Like, we can either have it very fast and easy if we use Sweep.
Yeah. Or not.
Sweep. Yeah, I'm just not going to get to it. It's on the backlog.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the business case looks like outside of what you mentioned, where, you know, RevOps has a ton going on, their backlog's growing, and the only solution traditionally is like more hands to keyboard, whether that's in-house, outsourced, and that's like a cost comparison that we're always winning.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's the more things you can get done in that backlog, the better, right? Assuming that the things that are in your backlog are relevant, which a lot of those items that you mentioned have a direct impact on revenue, right? You know, the time to contact leads, you know, stale leads, stale contacts in your Salesforce instance. Like, all these things matter a huge amount. And so yeah, tons of value to be had on the time saved and on the outcomes that, you know, executing on the backlog can actually have when it comes to revenue as well. So great. Well, I guess kind of as we wrap up, any last thoughts or kind of closing remarks here, Dan? Anything you want to make sure to mention that we haven't talked about? And if not, just kind of let folks know how they can kind of get in touch and contact you or reach out to the Sweep team if they need to. Yeah,
that's all I was going to say. You asked great questions, so I think we really covered a lot of the bases here. Yeah, getting in touch with us, you can go to our website, sweep.io, and book a demo right from there. Also, all of you that are in the RevOps Co-op Slack, which I imagine is everyone watching this, just shoot me a message, Danny Hodge, and, you know, happy to start our conversation there. And also for anyone that's in RevOps Co-op, we want to offer that we can start our conversation at the point of doing like a free visualization of your Salesforce environment, just for you to kind of see not only like the speed that you'll get that visualization with, but also just like, okay, here's my process. If I don't think I have anything on my to-do list, let me take a look at everything. Let me bring it internally and see, does our head of sales think that this matches the way his team sells? Does customer success think that things are slipping through the cracks after they're looking at our configuration? Welcome people to bring that to us. We'll turn something around for you. And then maybe that's a really good place for our conversation to start and figure out like a project to begin with. Yeah, I love that. I think that everyone probably has much more than just one thing in their backlog that they would love to be able to get done and deliver some value to folks. So yeah, if like bring that stuff to Danny and the Sweep team and see how, I'm not even gonna say see if you can, but see how you can get it done in no time with their tool, with their product. And again, that's the stuff that, you know, you can impress the rest of the go-to-market team and revenue team with things like that. So awesome stuff, Danny. Well, thank you very much for kind of doing the walkthrough of the product, for letting me pepper you with some questions today. This is great. But that's all that I had for you, my friends. So with that, I will let you run, Danny. Thanks to everybody for watching this episode of RevOps Demos That Don't Suck, and I'll see you all on the flip side. So take care.